Much has been said about Kawhi Leonard's menacing, understated presence on the court throughout his 8 seasons in the NBA, but very little of it has come from the source. The 6'7" forward from Riverside, California is one of the softest spoken stars that we've had in the modern NBA. Naturally, that cryptic nature has only stoked the speculation about his decision as an unrestricted free agent this summer after winning an NBA title with the Toronto Raptors. And an offseason filled with top-flight, franchise-level free agents, the opportunity to secure a 2-time Finals MVP and a surefire Hall of Famer like Kawhi Leonard is a unique one. But how could we possibly know what is going on behind that blank expression? How could we possibly know what he wants? This is Crossroads, a series where we'll take a look at some of the most prominent names in the 2019 free agent class and break down what might be driving the decision on what comes next. In part 2, we're going to attempt to solve the riddle of the Sphinx that is Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi is basketball's version of Michael Myers. His face and demeanor are indecipherable, he never seems to be moving overly fast, and yet somehow, as the opposition, you get the sense that he's going to stab you in the heart in the end. Kawhi is one of the more intriguing cases of player development in recent memory. He entered the NBA largely unknown as a slate of anomalistic physical gifts. Great size at 6'7", broad, muscular shoulders that seem destined to put on muscle, and those hands. His hands are like the facehuggers from Alien. They are huge! Hand adoration aside, Kawhi Leonard has matured into an efficient, ISO-dominant, high-usage player that is maddening to stop when he's got it going. That exceptional frame takes all of his preferences and puts them just out of reach. In the 2018-19 season, Kawhi had a usage rate of 29.8%, which was near the top of the league, and 16.5% of those possessions were in isolation. Insisting on being in isolation is fine if you can avoid being wasteful, and Kawhi does. Only 13 players in the league ISO'd on at least 16% of their possessions, and among those players, the Claw was second in score frequency and tied for third in points per possession. Kawhi's on-court impact for the Raptors is a prime example of why teams pursue stars. His offense was correctly pegged as separate from their normal scheme, but in the playoffs, a scheme can be schemed against, and an individual talent can be the difference. There's only so much about human beings that can be scripted. A hefty amount of Kawhi's damage happens in the mid-range, where his physical, why can't I block this shot, assortment of jumpers are maddening to defend. It's a shot that always seems to be crawling over the rim, but damn it if it doesn't go in. When he's fully healthy, Kawhi is arguably the best two-way player on planet Earth, but that's more in theory than it's ever been. In that sense, he's really only rivaled by guys like Giannis Antetokounmpo, Joel Embiid, and Paul George. But the asterisk of health for Leonard is a significant one, because a combination of injuries and a shift of energy towards big-time offensive production have eaten into that youthful energy that used to be solely dedicated to defense. This past season marked the highest defensive rating of his career at 107.2, and in the finals, it was apparent that he was laterally hampered and laboring. Kawhi is also brilliant at defending without fouling, only committing fouls 1.5% of the time, which is in the 100th percentile of the league. In peak form, Kawhi's defensive presence can elevate an entire team. His motor, his exceptional length, and defensive intelligence make him switchable 1 through 5, meaning he can guard all 5 positions comfortably. And we know that even in the early days of his career on the biggest stages, he's been a stone-cold basketball mongoose. He is feared by his peers. While other players feel the need to stomp their feet and gripe in the public sphere, Kawhi doesn't have to say a word to prove that he's a leader. His cultural presence is unthreatening, low maintenance, and stabilizing. He doesn't confront you with overbearing confidence or guilt. His standard makes his peers self-aware. He wins you over with his actions, and his actions are defined by a work ethic that seems like it's passing into mythical status. Listen, we joke about Kawhi being a robot, but his competitive flair is no laughing matter. He might not say much, but the impact that his presence had on the Raptors, a team that had infamously failed to seal the deal over and over, was vivid and unmistakable. His leadership is proven, and aside from that lapse with the Spurs, uncontroversial. Being drafted by the Spurs was a hugely fortuitous event for someone with the gifts that Kawhi was born with. Their organizational strength and widely praised skills development programs have polished countless players. When their competence, leadership, and mentoring and Kawhi's potential and work ethic collided, what followed was an unprecedented case of player development that brought us where we are today. Still, somehow, like Boyz II Men, we are forced to wonder how a perfect love goes wrong. Much like Kawhi himself, the ins and outs of that situation are difficult to fully know. Seeing just how important self-betterment and working are to Kawhi, you have to wonder if he might have been offended by the idea that he was dogging it that 2017-18 season with the Spurs. Trust, loyalty, and the real immediate opportunity to win are the hallmark cultural values for Kawhi's career going forward. Kawhi's already a Hall of Fame player. He's a 3-time All-Star. He was first-team All-NBA and Defensive Player of the Year in 2015 and in 2016. He's been NBA Finals MVP twice, and on both of those occasions, he came away with a ring. He did all of this before his 28th birthday. Kawhi's offensive game and two-way impact bear one of the closest resemblances to late-era Jordan that we've ever seen, with Kobe Bryant being the other. If you line his statistical profile up against some of the greatest wing players of all time at the same age, Kawhi's numbers measure up extremely well. He's not on the same level as a playmaker as guys like MJ, Kobe, Dwayne Wade, or James Harden, and that's an area where he could stand to diversify a bit. But Kawhi's efficiency with the ball really stands out. Kawhi's won in 2 separate environments now, so I'd imagine that his confidence in his ability to enhance an existing situation is supremely high. At this point, it's more about what he wants to prove than what he needs to prove. And Kawhi's given indication that he wants to prove a lot. He's extremely driven to become one of the best players of all time. While other teams have gotten excited because they've been mentioned, this, by most every informed account, is a 2-horse race. The Clippers have been building a strong case over the last year or so. They've already got the advantage that Kawhi was born in Los Angeles and grew up nearby. They hired Jerry West and Lee Jenkins to strengthen their pitch, and they even inquired about buying Kawhi's hand logo from Nike so that he could own it again. They're doing every little thing that they can to put themselves over the top. Purely in the basketball sense, the Clippers have incredible flexibility, and they're set to make moves and potentially add another superstar. Their roster could take on many forms before the 2019-20 season tips off. At the very least, the idea of pairing Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, another physically gifted and notorious hard worker, with an influence like Kawhi, that is enticing. With Doc Rivers, Lawrence Frank, Michael Winger, Jerry West, and potentially a superstar like Kawhi, they're positioning themselves to have an incredible core of leadership. Steve Ballmer, the very sweaty and very enthusiastic owner of the Clippers, has a history of launching Windows software, and if he pulls this off, the Clippers might be able to open a window for some championship hardware in the years to come. If you're the Toronto Raptors, you have to walk away from this feeling like you've done everything that you can. Masai's gamble yielded a huge payout for a franchise and an entire basketball-crazed country seeking legitimacy within the larger hoops world. This championship will likely have an enormous cultural impact on an already surging Canadian game. That alone is huge. The Raptors certainly could run it back. They'll likely return their entire team. It's looking like the East might take a dip, and with the bummer injuries to Durant and Klay Thompson, the NBA could be wide open next year. No team can offer the opportunity to win immediately at the same level. Past that, it's hard to say. If Kawhi chose to run it back, you'd think that a 1-year deal would be the way to go, but with Kawhi's recent injury history, it feels like a risky move. This is an extremely tough choice, and it's a choice that will likely have the biggest league-wide impact for the coming season. Both teams are well run, and both teams offer him the environment that he's after, although it's actually proven in Toronto and not hypothetical. It's a situation where there doesn't seem to be a bad choice. The winning team will be over the moon, and rightfully so. Kawhi is Kawhi the prize. Let me know if you agree.